Yeah, it's going into this. It felt like everything that we wanted to do or not do was going to be based on the development of our team and the development of the young core. So you take in all of that. You look at every situation. Certainly, leading up to the deadline, being proactive with making phone calls, making sure teams understood position in all ways, from any whether it was players out there or potential being a broker to our own UFAs, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, it was always about what was best for this group moving forward. What was the best thing for the development of this group, and really wanted to be mindful of putting these players in a position to keep getting better, keep getting better. And I like what I'm seeing in terms of our team and the dynamic in the locker room and the growth of players. And so that was the balance as we went into it, and as we went through the last few days.
Just in case, not any offers that were any good.
Uh, yeah, it's like so. I guess what I'd say specifically to that, like take Craig Anderson and Mark Pissick would be the two examples I would use to say what those guys do every day and what they've done every day, and the impact they've had on the culture of our team, and then certainly the way they've performed. But it's bigger than that for me. Is really powerful. And when you make a decision, and if you pull something, those types of people away from it, it's tough. So, yeah, at the end of the day, would we have been open to doing more and, for sure, making more moves, but we were not. We had a plan. We were going to stick to the plan. We weren't going to let the emotion of a deadline or any sort of pressure change our plan, and that's what we did. And I'll go back to say it again, Mike. I just really believe this next 19 games for our group is so important. It's important that we continue to push ourselves, continue to hold each other accountable, continue to grow. And I felt that the position that we've put ourselves in, with the group we have, will allow us to keep doing that. And, that's why.
In that sense, how important has this process been in learning how to win? Whereas, you were facing all the criticism, all the valleys back in December and January. And how important has that process been to where we could see some kind of a light at the end, at least a glimpse of a light at the end of the tunnel after these last couple of weeks?
It's honestly, John, it's huge because every time we step on the ice, we want to win hockey games. I've been saying that since I've had the job. But your process of what you do every day in practice, your process of how you play within a game, I'm a big believer, ultimately leads to the results. And what our group has started to learn this year is by playing the game the right way, by doing things shift in and shift out, puck decisions, length of shifts. I mean, all those types of things ultimately can end in wins or losses. So what we've seen lately is our group take a step of maturity, and it's been nice to see our process of our game better and then to get rewarded for it. But I do believe that winning is a byproduct of doing those things, and then winning also is a feeling within the group of confidence that, okay, we've done the right things, and then we got rewarded, and that to me has been a good step for us.
We've talked to you about the win over Vegas and the Heritage Classic win, but after the Oilers game, the response, just what did you see in these last two overtime wins?
Well, maturity is one word I'd use for it, to say, to look inside. It's that's part of what I'm talking about with the group, to look inside in the locker room and say, okay, that wasn't good enough in Edmonton. Why wasn't it good enough? Well, the answer is within the room, and now let's figure it out. And that's a huge step for us, by the way, to go into two tough buildings and very good teams and to answer the way our group did. So that goes back to my point of when you're developing as a team and when you're developing young players, those experiences can exponentially jump you forward. And if you take maybe some of that away from our guys based on making decisions or changing things, maybe there's a setback there. So that's kind of all the balance that I wanted to make sure that we are putting our players in a position to grow here, as we play these next 19 games.
A guy like Colin Miller, was there just not enough time for him to prove that he's over his injury as far as when you had talks about it? He only could play in 2 games.
Yeah, honestly, Colin and I have a really good relationship. He's a great pro. He's a great person. I've been honest with him back and forth through this process. Certainly was, for his sake, if there was an opportunity to do something, would. I just think that the health, coming off an injury that he was coming off of, there are obviously teams that are looking to add and go on a deep playoff run. There's questions around that. They want to make sure. So I think, that was pretty clear through this of, why we ended up with, that's the situation we have with Colin getting back into the lineup so late and getting cleared so late, close to the trade deadline.
Did you ever have to really have the conversation with Anderson at all? Did it ever get to that point?
Yeah, well, it did in terms of we spoke. Yeah, no, not ultimately there, but we spoke again this morning. Although poor guy got off the plane. I didn't go to, flew all night, and he sounded tired but happy. And just another conversation just to make sure that I wanted to make sure this organization does the right things in a first-class way and does the right things for the people that have done so much for us. And I put Craig in a really short time. He's done a lot for our organization. So I wanted to make sure one more time we had the conversation. And he reiterated that if there was an opportunity, possibly maybe it would be great for him in a certain place. And he also said, I love it here, and I've been, this has been an amazing organization to be part of, and wanted to be here, which was a big deal to me.
Rochester?
We did. So we assigned Peyton Krebs, Samuelson, and Fitzy, but then we're calling them back up. So what that does, for those of you in the room that don't know, is it allows us to potentially move them down. If we were to get into the playoffs or whatever, they'd have the opportunity in Rochester to play. So I just think that would be great if Rochester was able to be in a playoff spot. Have those guys available with the other young players that we're pretty excited about down there. And then, under a best case scenario, maybe they could go on a run and do it together. So that's why we wanted to make sure we did that.
Before we forget, so John Hayden he's still out west?
Yeah, so he is. Fortunately, the hotel's nice in Vancouver, so he's beautiful mountains and ocean. But he feels fine, asymptomatic, just was almost surprised, obviously, but hopefully he can test out. There's certain criteria with numbers and back-to-back days of testing, but hopefully we'll be seeing him in a few days. But yeah, he is still out in Vancouver right now.
Will we start seeing some of your younger players back now that you can expand the roster?
You can only have, just so you know, 4 recalls though. So we've left ourselves one spot, but the other way it could happen is if you got into an emergency recall situation. So and you've heard me say this before. To me, it's about the development piece. So whether it's if a guy's in Rochester, UPL, or Jack Quinn or JJ Paterka, or just name the player. If they're in Rochester and I'm comfortable with the development path they're on and the way they're handling themselves and what they're learning and growing, or if a player's here, a Peyton Krebs or a Samuelson or Fitzgerald in this instance, and they're developing and they have the opportunity and the ice time, we kind of take all that into account. So right now we're excited about that group, both here and there. I'm excited about some of the players that aren't in Rochester either that are going to be a big part of this moving forward and balancing it all. So would we potentially have one more recall at some point? We could. Or if you see, if we were in an emergency situation, then, those other players could be available as well.
Kevin, just so I understand, do the ones you did today, those count against
Yeah. So there's 3 of the 4. So you're in a position. We dealt with this last year too, where you like to have the flexibility a little bit, just to have the so 1 here moving forward. But a lot of it ends up just playing itself out with the roster, depending on the health of our roster and where we're at. But I guess it goes back to I do like what I'm seeing in Rochester right now. I was there at the game the other day. I like the way our young players especially are playing, and I want to just keep pushing them forward.
Was obviously a big weekend for the Amerks. Now that you're in the last month or so here, how critical is it organizationally in your mind for them to get in the playoffs and get a run, to get those guys that experience? Because for a lot of them, that might be their one chance to get that experience.
Yeah, so like I give Seth Appert and the coaching staff a lot of credit down there with, I mean, everybody's focused and knows how many injuries we've had and different things we've gone through adversity up here. Well, there's a trickle down effect, and then they've also had their own issues, with injuries, and so they have had a really, really challenging, probably 6-8 weeks of just trying to piece together a lineup. But in saying that, so then it creates opportunity. Like a player like Brandon Byro, because of the opportunity, stepped up and has been unbelievable, and then he got hurt. So we're getting closer to healthy. Really loved the response, those 2 games against Cleveland this past weekend, and the way they pushed and found a way. So I guess the way I'd say it is we're not obsessed about it, but at the same point, of course, if we can be in a spot where those guys can get in a playoff situation, can feel what it's like, just something driving to the rink and it's warm out and, just there's a feeling. And there's no better feeling as a player. And so I hope our guys can experience that, but, they got a lot of hockey in front of them still to work through.
Rasmus Dahlin was really on his game last night. It felt like he was going to make a huge impact at the end. Just what's happened to him? Not just in the last few months, even the last few weeks, it seems like it's reached another level.
Rasmus is he has bought all in on wanting to be here for the right reason, and wanting to move this franchise forward. I've seen it just from day one of training camp, the way he just looked to me and the presence that he had in the locker room. I do believe, I go back to, you surround people with the right people and you bring out the best in them, can really be powerful. And I think that's what we've seen from Rasmus. And then that's reflected his on-ice play. He also knows that the coaching staff really believes in him and can be a difference maker every night. And I'm watching the game last night, and I got excited with what we're seeing in his development and where his game is. But I also was thinking, like, he's 21 years old still. He is an opportunity to keep getting better, keep pushing. And that, for me, is the type of kid he is. And that's the type of people we want in the organization. Ones that are here because they really believe in something that we're going to do here is special. And then they want to get better. And he's got both those qualities.
How much do you think that some people have to, this is not in a bad way reflective of the players that have left, but some people have to get out of his way for him to step into that void?
Yeah, you go back, you wind it back to a year ago, where we were at the trade deadline, and just different things we've moved forward with, over the last, I know it's not a calendar year, but you know what I mean, over the last hockey calendar year. There's been a lot of changes, and I've said it again before, and I'm going to keep saying it again and again. If you get the culture right, it brings out the opportunity for players to thrive when they're in a position that they believe is right for them. And that's what we've been working so hard on. And I think Rasmus is right at the center of that, But Rasmus deserves a lot of credit for his approach and how he's handling himself, what he's doing every day. He is extremely a hard worker, competitive kid every day in practice, does the right things. But I want to also give credit to the people around him in the locker room that are helping that message. The Kyle Ekposkos, the Zemgus Girgensson, Anderson, Pissick. I could go down the list. So I think it's a combination of all of it. But we're excited about where he's at and look forward to him just to keep improving.
Would it be accurate to say that there was some talk, going forward, maybe some seeds planted, and you didn't spend all your time in your own UFAs? Was there some conversation?
Yes. So just a couple examples for you. We were in on conversations, a couple pretty serious ones about a potential broker type of deal where we would have been involved. In fact, on our end, we had kind of agreed on how it could work. And then it didn't end up panning out from the other two teams, so there's a lot of time and there's a lot of work that goes into these, and that's all part of it. So that was something we did, and we were really, we were open to them. We were hoping, is there a way to take advantage of the cap space, but you need other teams to be able to do it with you. So that was one thing. Absolutely planted some seeds in terms of the off season, and what I mean by that is conversations about potential players that are on teams that maybe we feel are a fit here, but the team said, well, we really need this guy or want this guy for the rest of the season and in the playoffs, but let's talk about it, in the off season. So those seeds are planted. And what I have learned in this job is every one of your conversations, it could be compounded into the next one and the next one. Things don't happen overnight. So I do feel a lot of work was done there. Everybody will probably take a breath here in the next couple of days, and there's the GM meetings next week down in Florida, which will be nice, because then maybe some of those conversations that I've had over the last few weeks can pick up again, as we head towards the off season.
Playing the way he has, would you be interested now in maybe talking to him about a contract extension, or is that something you would save until the summer?
Yeah, I haven't put a ton of thought into that because I wanted to get the other side of the trade deadline. He's absolutely a player that I feel has been impactful on and off the ice. I didn't mention him with the Pistons and Andersons, but I can tell you right now he's had a positive effect on our room. I don't know how many of you watch practice, but you've heard me say before, like, I do believe practice habits matter. I do believe your practices matter. And Vinny Hinostroza is going all out, every drill, every rep. It all matters to him. And I think there's a message that guys like Dylan Cousins get and Peyton Krebs get, and they're playing on a line together right now, like, wow, okay, this is what you have to do in this league. I just think that's important. So he's absolutely a guy that that I felt, again, going into this past couple days, that you can make decisions and move things around, but it's about these next 19 games and getting the most out of our team and out of our individuals, and he helps us do that. So I'm definitely open to that, but we'll see whether it's sooner or would we push that into the off season and kind of take a breath and then go through it and go from there.
I mean, can you even reflect back? You talk about the calendar year, but to the last trade deadline, and you're giving up Paul for only a second pick and all this stuff. I mean, you're smiling now, but I'm not sure if you're smiling outwardly or even internally back then.
Well,
a year ago, and how much that's changed.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the second press conference on last year's trade deadline, it was it was unique because Taylor had a no move clause. You end up getting to a spot where, you saw it happen a little bit with other teams that just went through this. Ultimately, when the player, you get one team you're negotiating with, it can get challenging. But what we were in the middle of last year, we came off a draft where we had, I think, 5 picks. And I felt strongly that we really needed to get our pipeline deeper and we needed to add. So, through the Eric Stahl trade, through the Montour trade, and then ultimately Taylor, we started to add some more picks. And I think then when we made our other moves, we ended up, I think, with 11 picks last year. We have 10 going into this year's draft, which to me mattered, and how decisions we were going to make too. You're balancing all of that. But, when I look at last year's trade deadline, and then I fast forward to now, I feel that we are taking the right and appropriate steps, methodically making decisions for the right reasons, sticking to our plan, you can't fast forward it, you can't rush it, but you have to have a plan and you have to stick with it. And I really think it's easy in these type of days to get caught up in the emotion or get caught up in you want to stress, whatever the right word is, of the deadline, and then make decisions that you may regret down the line. So I just think that's something we were mindful of over the last few days.
When 3 o'clock hit today, did you still feel some kind of relief? I know you weren't pushing anything,
Yeah.
but was there still some relief to keep the culture building, and probably some relief among the players?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the player part because I lived it as a player. Actually, I got a phone call once on trade deadline. I thought I was on the other side, but I got a call at 3:20 that I had been traded. So, it is a stressful time. I can just tell you, even if you are in a position where you're maybe like hoping to get moved, it's just stressful. Your whole world gets turned upside down. You're picking up, you're moving, whatever. So, okay, now that's something the players have to deal with. For me personally, you're so intense, you're so focused on the making sure you stick to the plan, making sure you are having the right conversations, making sure that you're staying focused on what matters most, which is how we're building this team right here, and so balancing all that. So as you get to 3, when you get calls, or maybe there's things that happen. People try to see at the last minute, can they make a move and try to get you to cave or to do something. That's why you surround yourself with good people. Also, it's collaborative in our boardroom, and I guess we're not in business. We call it a war room, not boardroom, but you know what I mean. And I think it's fun, but at the same point, it's intense. So for sure, you take a little breath after 3 o'clock, and I don't even know what time it is now, but you kind of catch your breath, and now I turn the page to what's next. We've got some exciting prospects playing in the college, NCAAs that's coming up this week. I'm going to hit the road and watch some of those guys. Rochester, like we talked about, has some really big games, and then what's going on here, and you start to focus on all of those things.
Yeah, would you say that did Hag have the most interest, or was that just the best offer for any guy you got?
A little bit of both. Robert Hagg, I'm not surprised. There was a lot of teams checking in on him. Relatively cheap when it comes to a quality defenseman that can play a role, especially in the playoffs. Physical, shot blocker, great person, like character, the whole deal. That's the hard part of this job, where even when I called him yesterday, I think it was a great thing for him. You're going to one of the elite teams that has a chance to win a Stanley Cup, but on the human level, you hate that phone call and saying goodbye. But yeah, I think when I looked at our back end, and then you look at potentially who's coming, you also want to do the right thing for everyone, the player and the organization, and that's why we made that move.
Kevin, with the 3 that you had the paper transaction with today, with Rochester, were they all well aware in advance that this was coming?
Yep. So Fitzgerald got cleared, just so you know, medically. That was a piece of this coming into today, because he had to go through all the the proper medical steps and everything. So once he was cleared, I had previously talked to him, and you guys know my style. I talk to the players directly. I never hide anything. I also talked to the agents, so there was no question on what we were gonna do. They understood. In fact, I got to tell you, all 3 of them were pretty excited in a way. The thought of saying, yeah, if that, the playoffs is going on, I want to be part of that, which I think says a lot about the character of those 3, because that's not always the case, I can tell you.
Yeah, and then if everything was equal and there's, stability injury-wise with both clubs, and you've only got this one recall left, do you already have in your mind who you would want to bring up in that situation? Because you can imagine the fan base, 3 or 4 guys on the list that they definitely want to see have games up here.
Yeah, so I don't want to say that. I have different scenarios in my mind. So let's say it plays itself out in different ways. Or maybe we don't use it at all. We'll see. But what did play a part in this for me was J.J. Peterka had played a couple NHL games this year. Jack Quinn played a couple NHL games this year, and certainly, when he got hurt, was playing really well, and probably would have had a chance to play more at that point. So to me, there's value in feeling what it's like to step on an NHL ice surface, and just Brandon Byro got that this year, and I think there's something mental about that, and for me, when a player can say, okay, I know what it's like now, and then I belong there. I got to work to get there. Here's what I need to do. The game happened a little faster, whatever it is. And I talked to those players, by the way, about what they felt and what were they processing after the game. It also matters for them going into the offseason that, okay, no one's asking me what's it going to be like when you play in the NHL. You know what it's like, and now I know 2 games is 2 games, but you know what, you get my point. So I do feel good that a group of those guys have played now, had the feeling, and we're pretty excited about those guys. So they're going to be a big part of what we're doing here moving forward. I think there's no secret to that. How we feel about Jack Quinn. What he's doing right now is exceptional. J.J. Peterka, what he's doing at his age is exceptional. UPL, he knows how we feel about him. He's going to be a big part of this moving forward. So these are guys that I tell them, be present. Don't wake up every day thinking about wake up every day thinking about what do I need to do to be the best possible player I can be, and then it all takes care of itself. And I think those guys have bought into that, so that's good on them, especially at that age. Good?
It's 4:10, by the way.
4:10. All right, I'm going to get home for dinner still. That's good.